Hi, and welcome to my I'd just like to make a short video about the check atomizer problems people are having with their Kanger subtanks. Now, I'd just like to explain what's going on in here and how everything works and everything. Now, when you unscrew the base, like you'll see the 510 pin in the bottom of your base here. Now, this is what's known as a floating 510 pin, where it's not connected to anything, it's just held in by the rubber insulator that's inside there that insulates it from the body of the atomizer. So basically you could just push that 510 pin out from inside and it would just drop out the bottom. So what this is designed to do is when you screw your coil inside your base here, the coil, the positive pin on the coil pushes up against the 510 pin, and because it's floating, like there's movement in it, what it's designed to do is when you screw it into your mod, like the 510 pin in your mod pushes the 510 pin in your base to the positive pin in your coil. Now what's happening is when these are new and this the rubber inside, it's quite stiff and it's hard to move, and sometimes you can't get enough pressure from this 510 pin to push that pin through to connect to the pin onto your coil. Now what you need to do is you need to unscrew this to remove your coil out of the base, turn your base over and take a screwdriver and push your 510 pin into through, and then see, because what's happening is because of the rebound effect of the rubber insulator, if you left that in and you push the 510 pin in, what's happening is you're going to push it in with the screwdriver, you're going to make contact with your 510 pin, but when you let the pressure off, because it's mounted in rubber, it's going to the rubber is going to relieve the pressure and leave a gap again. So you're never going to close that gap. So you need to remove the coil and push the 510 pin through. So you're going past where it's going to contact in here, and then when you screw your coil in, it's going to push your 510 pin out again, which the rebound effect will have the opposite effect of like when you're pushing it in from this way. When you're pushing it out from that way, it'll have the opposite effect of closing the gap and keeping pressure on that connection, rather than it having and then releasing when you release the pressure. So then this will make it easier for your 510 pin in here, because it's not got to fight any back pressure off the rubber inside. So then it will make the connection. Now another problem with the Kanger subtanks is, like, you might do this and then you might still find when you do this with your RBA section here that you're still having that problem. Or it might be okay and then you take your atomizer off, you put it back on, and you've got it's check atomizer in, you don't know it was connecting before, you don't know what's up. Now what the problem is here is, if I line these up so that the threads are level, you will see that the OCC section is slightly longer than the RBA section, and I don't think this pin on the RBA section is long enough. So what I did to remedy this problem was we need to remove this pin. This pin will unscrew out of the bottom of this here. Try to do this one-handed, but you can unscrew this pin and remove it completely, and you'll be just left with this metal pin with a screw thread. And you take a pair of vice grips to hold it with while you heat it up with a blowtorch. Now you don't want to tighten the vice grips too tight, because you just want it just enough to hold it, because you can crush this, because it is just a thin metal tube, so you need to be careful when you're when you're vice gripping this, or you could use a vice if you've got a vice, or whatever. Most people have a pair of mole grips or vice grips, whatever you want to call them, and then heat it up with the blowtorch and melt some solder onto here. And then what you will notice when you first put it on is the solder will bead up into a ball and it will be rolling around on the top. Now if you stop heating it here, it'll cool down and the solder won't stick. So what you need to do is you need to keep heating it until you will see this ball of solder melt out onto you will get to a point of heating it and the ball will be like this, and then it'll just go and spread out like that across the top. Then you can stop heating it, and then like I just blew on it till you see the solder solidify, and then put it in some cold water, and then you can replace your coil. And then you might find that it's pushing your 510 pin pushes out too much. Then you might have put too much, but then you could just take a soldering iron and flatten the top, or take some sandpaper and just rub it down a little bit until your 510 pin is in the right place. You want it sticking out a little bit. You don't want it sticking out too much that you're struggling to get your atomizer onto your thing, onto your mod, or it's not sitting flush. Like it might not be sitting flush, like because your 510 pin is sticking out too much. So you just, like I say, rub it down with a little bit of solder, with a little bit of sandpaper, and that until you've got the right height on your pin here. It only needs a little bit, but as you can see, I've done this to mine. I have some solder on the end of it there, and it has solved the problem. So I hope that helped you out with your sub tank, and I'll see you again.